Well, here we go again, everybody. Welcome back to the Bass Commissioners. Just a couple of regular Joes who feel it's time for unification in our sport and want to see it become the best it can possibly be. We tackle the hard issues in the sport, and when necessary, we produce binding rulings that the professional tour organizations will probably ignore. Tonight, we are going to go down a rabbit hole and try to determine who is the greatest angler of all time. That's right. Tonight, we are going to determine who the GOAT of professional bass fishing is. There may be some surprises in this discussion. In addition, we've got several other important issues that need to be tackled. Do you have a comment? Do you have a question? Is there something in the world of bass fishing that the commissioners need to address? Send us a message. You can DM us on Instagram. You could leave a comment in the comment section below. I'm your co-host, Keith Neiswanger, and of course, I am joined by fellow commissioner, Patrick Schaefer. All right, we ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, let's see. We've got a bunch of subjects for tonight. You wanna start with one, or do you want me to go?
I'll start with it.
All right, let's go.
So, who is the greatest professional angler of all time? And can you pick just one?
Well, I believe you can. I don't know how much digging you've done in this, but I've done quite a bit of digging. Spent a lot of time today on this, and to me, I think there's a lot of different criteria, but certainly you want to look at the longevity of a career. Certainly you want to look at accomplishments. Now, to me, we've had two major tours in the history of our sport.
Right.
All due respect to the new guys on the block, National Professional Fishing League, I think is a legitimate league. But in terms of the history of our sport, we've had BASS and we've had FLW/Major League Fishing. And
Right.
to me, there's four boxes that need to be checked. There is, have you won an Angler of the Year title? Have you won more than one Angler of the Year title? Have you won a championship? Have you won a Bassmaster Classic? Have you won an FLW Major League Fishing Angler of the Year title? Have you won a Forrest Cup Championship, FLW Championship, Bass Pro Tour, Red Crest? To me, those are kind of lumped together. And those are kind of the criteria that I have in mind. What are you thinking?
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, when you have that, you have, you can take into consideration the influence they've had on the sport of fishing. You look at Roland Martin. Roland Martin never won a Bassmasters Classic, but he was a big influence for me growing up.
Yes.
Jimmy Houston, Denny Brower, Hank Parker, Bill Dance. I mean, those were the people that I grew up watching on TNN as a kid. And, but then you take like a Kevin Van Dam, who's won several Bassmasters Classics. You have, now you got Jacob Wheeler, who's won Angler of the Year twice. And then Brandon Polinick's won Angler of the Year twice. Jason Christie finally won a Bassmasters Classic. So I don't think you can, and I've seen a couple things about it, which was kind of why I brought it up for us to talk about. But I don't think you could pick just one, because they've all had their influence in some form or fashion. I mean, maybe, like Bill Dance didn't spend a whole lot of time on the tournament side of things. He kind of took off with the TV thing. But, I mean, you can hold that hat up anywhere to anybody that's grown up fishing or knows anything and just say, whose hat is this? And everybody would know it's Bill Dance.
Well, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. But, I mean, in terms of tangible statistics, I guess that's what I need to see. I need to see what are the tangible statistics, and to me, it's those boxes you got to check off. Now, I think that we're not talking about present day greatest angler, because it'd be hard to dispute what Jacob Wheeler has done in the last couple of years. But if we're talking about a full body of work, there's a number of of anglers that I think deserve to be talked about. So, I was looking at the anglers that have checked off more than 2 of my boxes, okay? And it's a short list. David Fritz. David Fritz has won an Angler of the Year for BASS. He has won a Bassmaster Classic, and he has won an FLW Cup. Not an FLW. He does not have an AOY on that end. Now, I don't think David Fritz is going to be at the top of our greatest of all time list, but he's one Angler of the Year away from doing it, checking all 4 of those boxes. As near as I can tell, nobody has done all 4 of those. I thought KVD might have, but he has never won an FLW Cup or a Red Crest. Now, he could still win a Red Crest, and to me, boy, if that happens, that's there's just nobody else out there. But there are a few. There are a few that have done 3. KVD has done 3. He's won Angler of the Year title for BASS, a Bassmaster Classic, and he's been an FLW Angler of the Year 1 time. Jay Ellis. Jay Ellis has a Bassmaster Classic. He has an Angler of the Year award, and he has 2 FLW Angler of the Year awards. This comes back to our discussion that we had. What weighs heavier in your mind, an Angler of the Year award or a single tournament? Edwin Evers has won a Classic. He's won an Angler of the Year award for Major League Fishing. He was a 2019 Angler of the Year, and he also has won a Red Crest. So he's got 3. Guido Hibden has got 3. He's got Angler of the Year title, a Bassmaster Classic, and he won. I'm sorry, I meant to say Dion Hibden. Dion Hibden has 3. He has won an Angler of the Year Classic and an FLW Cup Championship. But boy, those are some tough hurdles to jump over. I'm interested. There's a name we haven't mentioned yet. We haven't mentioned Rick Clunn yet.
Yeah.
Rick Clunn has 7 BASS Angler of the Year titles. Rick Clunn won 4 straight from 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011. Rick Clunn won. I'm sorry, my mistake. I'm reading the wrong guy's numbers there. Rick Clunn was a BASS Angler of the Year 1 time, but he has 4 Bassmaster Classic wins. Okay. He also has 4 U.S. Open wins, where he's come out to Lake Mead and fished the WON Bass U.S. Open, and he's won that event 4 times. That's not necessarily part of this criteria, but I think it adds to the legend of Rick Clunn.
Right.
So I'm basically just going off of numbers. I know that there are television stars and so on, but
right. But for sure. You kind of have 2 different categories. You have, those who influenced the television world and everything else, and then you have the ones that actually did it on the water. Obviously you take like a Hank Parker. Hank Parker won a Bassmasters Classic, but you look at these ones that have won multiple Anglers of the Year. You look at Jordan Lee, won back-to-back Bassmasters Classics, and he won an Angler of the Year in MLF. So he's checking a couple boxes.
Yes, he is.
And, so you start, like you said, you start getting these people to check a few of these boxes, and I don't think there's any way to pick just one person that you would say is the greatest fisherman of all time. Because there's too many arguments, like you could say, well, this guy did this, well, this guy did that. It's just kind of a lot of.
Well, we should first of all, since we are talking about the contributions that they've made on television and bringing the sport to people, Roland Martin was 9-time Angler of the Year for BASS. I want to make sure we say that and don't forget to mention it, because I think it's an important relative comment to make. But I do think there's a clear winner here. I think Kevin Van Dam has the numbers. He has the exposure. I don't think you can dispute this. I was reading his numbers a few minutes ago when I was talking about Rick Clunn. Kevin Van Dam has won 7 BASS Angler of the Year awards. He won it four straight years, from 2008 through 2011. He's won 4 Bassmaster Classics. He won 2 straight. So there were a couple of years there, 2010 and 2011, where Van Dam was the Angler of the Year and the Classic champion. I just think, being at that level in those moments, pretty hard to dispute. He's also got 1 FLW Angler of the Year award. And I think something like 25 major tour wins. I just don't think that there are any other pro resumes that can rival what Kevin Van Dam has done in the sport.
You're right. Can't argue that.
Well, I mean, I don't need to be right necessarily, but I have not heard anybody. I have not heard any comments or I've never heard any discussion on this. And we're not the first guys to talk about this. I think virtually every podcast has done this, but I don't think I've ever heard an argument that would make me back off of that.
Right.
He's got the long resume. I mean, I think he started in the late 80s, if not the late 80s, the early 90s. And, he is still a tour force today. It's interesting. A lot of the older guys, we watch them and, they're in these events, but they're not necessarily in line to win these events very often. We just haven't seen that from a lot of the older guys. But KVD is a guy that's in that older group that I think is always a threat to win. I mean,
right.
And I really think with this new 5-fish format for Major League Fishing, you could see another KVD run, just because he's got that in his DNA, I think.
And that's actually what I was about to say. Is now that I think they've switched to this 5-fish format, I think we're going to see, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised to see KVD making a run at Angler of the Year in MLF. And then if he does that would solidify him being the best even more, because then he would have an Angler of the Year in MLF, an Angler of the Year in FLW, and an Angler of the Year in Bass, or multiple Angler of the Year in Bass. But
yeah, I was thinking about which pros are out there that could still do that. I suppose I'm just trying to think which pros are still out there that could actually do that. I think KVD is one of the few. Jay Yellis has retired. Rick Clunn is not going to fish any Major League Fishing events. To win those 2 titles on 2 different tours, it's otherworldly.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
so
have we made this decision? I mean, I don't think this is necessarily a ruling that the commissioners have to make. I think it's kind of a fun discussion. It doesn't particularly affect the the landscape of the tournament world. I'm sure there are people out there right now going, "Duh, you guys just spent 20 minutes discussing something that everybody already knew." Well, I mean, I think Roland Martin certainly gets honorable mention. I think Bill Dance certainly gets honorable mention. I think a lot of these guys get honorable mention. But I mean, in terms of having a criteria for actually deciding this, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many podcasts out there have used a criteria other than just, hey, he's just the best there is.
Right.
I mean, I guess I'm patting myself on the back. We don't need to do that, but I mean, I think we're commissioners, and we need to have data that supports our arguments. We need to have evidence that supports our arguments. And to me, tournament record resume, lifespan, that's a criteria.
Right.
All right. Well, there you go. My turn, right?
Yes, sir.
I think we might have one here that might require a ruling tonight. In this age of live streaming events, do we still need weigh-ins?
So, I don't know. I know we talked about last week, and I started thinking about this some more after we talked last week about the whole should catch, weigh, and release be the whole format, no more weigh-ins and all that stuff, and we were kind of at a standstill, you kind of said, no more, do catch, weigh, and release for everybody, and I still was talking about liking the weigh-ins, but I feel like, thinking about it some more, that the catch, weigh, and release is the way to go. But I still think there are the fans out there that still like the weigh-ins. So, I mean, me personally, I'm not going to go to a weigh-in unless it's close to my house. I'm not going to drive 3 hours to go watch a weigh-in. Now, I might drive 3 hours to go see a Bassmasters Classic or 2 hours to go see a Bassmasters Classic, but, Bass is coming to the Sabine River, and it's probably an hour and a half drive from where I live. I don't plan on driving over there to watch the weigh-in. So I feel like you would probably upset a few people if you got rid of weigh-ins. But I don't really think you have to do them anymore. I mean, maybe come up with a better way for the fans to interact with the anglers.
Well,
which I know MLF has kind of done that now. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we've got Brandis, or Kemp Brandis weighing in saying, need? No. For the TV industry, I think it would be helpful. I think, if I understand what he's saying there, I think he thinks that it makes for good television. I'm kind of the other opinion. I watch a lot of sports on TV, and when I watch sports on TV, I always know what the score is. I always know, who's winning. It helps with the drama of the sport. And I think that the traditional weigh-in, you fish up until that amount of time that you think you have to get to race back to the weigh-in, and all that time you don't know. And I mean, I'm sure because this is what we've always done. And it's always been exciting. It's always been compelling. But, everybody, I really like knowing what the score is. And yes, when you know what the score is, unfortunately, it does tend to take away from the excitement at the weigh-in. But that's why I asked this question tonight is, do we still need weigh-ins in professional bass fishing? I understand about fan interaction. I would say, why not have an award ceremony there, like we'd normally have. I'm sure that, you could have an expo, you could have a tackle show, local dealers come in or whatever, and maybe invite the local community tackle manufacturers or the big ones to come into all these events. Well, whatever it is, have an award ceremony, but I don't think we need a weigh-in. I would much rather see the score and know what I'm, as a competitor even, I would want to know what the score is. What do I have to do?
Yeah. I mean, and kind of like we talked about last week, as far as the weigh-ins, I don't really care about the first 3 days. The only day that really matters on the weigh-in to me is the last one. So, I mean, cool, this guy's leading day one. I mean, I've seen tournaments where there's four different people that lead the tournament. Day one, this guy leads, and you think, oh, man, he had a great day. And then day two, he falls off the map because he doesn't catch it day two, and now there's a new leader. And then day three, there's a completely different leader. And then day four, somebody else wins it anyway. So when I went to the Redfish Cup, there was like 10 teams weighing in. So it was great to only have to watch 10 people come across the stage. You weren't standing out there for 4 hours waiting for 90 anglers to weigh in across the stage. So, I mean, I feel like I said, if I was going to go to a weigh-in, I'm going to go to the last day because that's where the excitement's going to be. And, thinking about it, I mean, obviously with MLF, you know the score all the time. And it's never bothered me knowing the score. So, I mean, like you said, I don't really think you need weigh-ins anymore. I mean, obviously all the bass guys are going to argue. Some of the bass guys are going to argue because they talk about liking the weigh-ins and walking across the stage and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, I've never experienced it myself, so maybe it is a great feeling or something like that. But I just feel like I also kind of like knowing who's winning.
Well, there's also a conservationist side of this as well. We have. I really think our sport has endured the attack from PETA. There was a time when PETA and other environmental groups out there really were coming after bass fishing, and I think that the sport has done a very good job of showing its conservationist side. It's kind of hard to argue that we don't take care of our resources. Kind of hard to argue that we don't take care of our resources. But I think we can take better care of our resources. And if we're not bringing these fish, on a hour boat ride and putting them on scales and stressing them out that way, I mean, that seems like it's a better thing from a conservationist side. The original weigh-ins, do you see the old pictures? These guys had them on stringers. They had them on stringers. And I mean, I don't think that would fly in our society today.
Right. Well, and talking about putting them in a live well, so, I grew up bass fishing, and it was always you caught it, you tossed it back, and release it back in the water. I never put anything in a live well. And then when I got into saltwater fishing, all of our fish go into a cooler full of ice, the ones that we're going to keep and eat.
Absolutely.
So, I'm sitting here now, and I got this brand new bass boat that's got these 2 live wells with an oxygenator, and it does all this recirculating and everything else. And I have absolutely no idea how to actually use it. So, I mean, I have a general idea because I'm not, but, as far as the proper way and recirculating and doing all this stuff, I mean, I've talked to a couple of people that have given me some tips and things like that. But if I could just weigh it and release it, I mean, when I fished that, like I told you, I fished that club tournament, and we were on a slot link. So we measured the fish, let it go. And when I went in there, I knew how much weight I had. We walked in there, and they said, okay. I didn't know if I won, but they read out who came in first and their weight, and I think I ended up finishing like 5th. But, still, all the fish got released back in the lake. I didn't have to worry about keeping anything alive or have to worry about releasing them back in the lake after that. So, like I said, conservation-wise.
Yeah, I don't. First of all, you talked about that long line, watching a long weigh-in. Oh my gosh, I don't think I could sit through an open weigh-in. I don't think I could sit through a Toyota Series weigh-in. I don't really think I could sit through an invitational weigh-in. Those are hard to watch. When those things are live streamed, I just can't watch them. It just right. There's not. I don't know. It's not good. It's not good TV.
No, I put it on in the background, and if I happen to hear a name that I recognize, paying attention, then I'll be like, "Oh, hey," and I'll watch what they weigh. But other than that, I just go look at the scoreboard.
Right. And so, I mean, I don't see how we change opens and Toyotas and invitationals because there's too many anglers. but I think that the technology, the BPT does this already, and I think that the Elite Series, the BASS Elite Series, kind of does it. They don't have an official. So the weights are kind of guesstimates, and so you have a general idea of what's going on. But they do it at the Lake Fork tournament when they have their events on Lake Fork. They do it. So I feel like it can be done, and probably should be done.
Yeah.
I agree. Do you think that we have enough here to make a ruling on this? Is this something we should rule on?
I think so.
All right.
I think for the longevity of the sport and to be better and for the conservation side of things, I feel like the catch, weigh, and release is the way to go and do away with the live weigh-ins. I mean, like you said, and obviously Toyota Series stuff you can't, but
yeah, the top pro tier events. Well, so in this age of live streaming events, do we still need a weigh-in? The commissioners say no. Wow. All right. Well, there's your first ruling for the evening. We have determined that we do not any longer need to have weigh-ins. We do not need to have weigh-ins anymore. We need to marshal the fish, officiate the fish. You got to have somebody on that boat to oversee it so that nothing dishonest happens.
Right.
But there you go. There you go. It's back to you. Have you got one?
I do. So, and I'm not going to mention any names with this right away, but does covering up or internalizing investigations into angler misconduct help or hurt the organizations?
Yeah. I think we all like transparency, and the reality is the bass fishing media, there are not a lot of independent media folks out there. There's a few.
Right.
There's a few, but I feel like the information should be reported. It should be self-reported. It should be out there. I think BASS has done a pretty good job over the years with things. They've announced disqualifications, and Major League Fishing and FLW have also done it. I think we're, I think that we're, I think generally speaking, the sport is policed pretty well. But I do think that the organizations need to be up front with their whatever investigations they're doing.
Right. And I know for MLF standpoint, I mean, obviously there was the one that just happened, or happened last season, I should say. And they're kind of in a tight spot because everybody's already trying to figure out a way to, just not everybody, but there's a lot of people out there that want to see them fail. And so when you're MLF and all of a sudden you have a problem, the last thing you want to do is add fuel to those people's fire. But then on the other side of that coin, those people are going to be upset no matter what you do. They're going to have something to say. If you wait and then put it out there, they'll be like, oh, see, they were trying to cover it up and hide it. If you say something about it immediately, they're going to be like, oh, see, look, ML, they just got a bunch of cheaters over there. But I think, like you said, the best thing you could do is just be honest about it and say, hey, we had a report of something that happened. We're doing an investigation. And that way, if there's any rumors floating around of something happening, they can be like, oh, man, well, they're investigating.
Yeah.
So, and then, because it does, and I'm not saying they were, but when you wait 6 months or 8 months to finally talk about it, it makes it look like you were going to try to sweep it under the rug until enough people found out about it that you didn't have a choice.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if that's not what you may not have been trying to do that at all. I mean, I've been parts of investigations and stuff like that where I've had to, and I understand you try to keep things low key and not put a lot of information out there, but you can put just a little bit out there that doesn't throw anybody under the bus, doesn't, but you can say, hey, we've had some reported allegations. We're looking into it. Once the investigation's complete, then we'll do something then. But until then, because you got to make sure it's true and you got to make sure it actually happened.
Right.
And, with our ruling that we made last week about fish having to be hooked in the mouth, there was a deal that happened there where they had to investigate. It wouldn't have mattered because it wasn't hooked in the mouth and the fish wouldn't have counted. So that would have solved that one problem.
See what we do? We are saving this sport one issue at a time.
That's right.
Okay, so we do think that they should be more transparent. I don't know. I don't know if we need to make a ruling on that necessarily. We just want to see the organizations be as transparent as possible.
Yeah, there needs to be more transparency so that so it doesn't look like anything's being covered up, and maybe just stop doing anything like that if they know that as soon as they do it, it's going to get blasted out there. And now at every tournament they're going to go to, you're going to have those fans in the stands heckling you about whatever.
Right.
Or not in the, you know what I mean? I'm saying the stands, but out there in the crowd, they're going to be like, "Oh, hey, snagging fish again." So
yeah,
or whatever the case may be, but.
All right. So is it to me now?
Yep.
I read an interesting article this week. The question was, in the top of the article was, does catch and release make bass fishing more difficult? Are we training fish not to bite? The article is on Eastern Outdoors. Let me check that again. EasternOutdoorsMedia.com website, written by Jason Kiner. And I thought it was an interesting idea. The idea that, we, for so many years, have preached catch and release. But in doing that, are we training these fish not to bite again? Are we teaching these fish? What is the bass's capacity to learn, and so on? If we kept every fish that we caught, would we hurt the population? Would we make the fishing easier? He asked some good questions.
Yeah, it's hard to, as I've been there, I've caught, a couple of years ago, my brother and I were fishing. He set the hook on a fish, broke it off. About 30 minutes later, we're fishing Carolina rigs. He drags across there again, catches the fish, reels it in, and I'm looking at this fish, and I was like, he's got another piece of line coming out of his mouth. Well, it was the same fish, had the same hook with the leader and everything else in there, and I took both hooks out. So, now granted, this was maybe a 2-pound fish, but it ate twice. And then I've also, during the spawn, seen it before where you'll catch the little male off the bed and throw it back in there, and as soon as you flip back in there, he's after it again.
Right.
And that's, and sometimes, so I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but I think fish are probably just like people. And I'm going to use an example. We had a flood one time, and this bridge down past the fire station was underwater. So we took some barricades and moved it in front because we kept seeing people have to drive down there and turn around. So we were trying to save them from driving a mile down this road only to have to turn around. And I would watch all these people get out, move the barricade, drive down there, end up having to turn around and come back. They didn't care about the barricades. So where I'm going with that is the same thing with a fish. There was one guy that finally stopped and was like, "Hey, is the road closed down there?" We're like, "Yeah, that's why all the barricades are sitting right there." Well, I didn't know. I just kept seeing all these other people go down there. So it didn't matter at how many people they saw drive down there and then making a U-turn and coming back, they still would keep on going down there. So I kind of feel like fish are probably the same way, on animals in general, whether it be reptiles, fish, mammals. Some of them are probably going to go, "You know what? I bit that little jig-looking thing right there 4 times, and every time I do, I get jerked out of the water. So I'm not biting anything that looks like that again."
We'll sign off on that one right now. Well, that is going to do it for another episode of the Bass Commissioners. Always good discussion, always good comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? leave us a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. We are trying to build the content on this show. We think we've got some good topics, but if you think of something else you'd like us to talk about, let us know. That's going to do it for this episode of the Bass Commissioners. Thanks for being with us. Until next time, keep both hands on the wheel, stay safe, and we will talk to you again very soon.